March 15, 1943. Macklin Engineering Bureau, Philadelphia. Night janitor Vera Hadley empties another wastebasket from the drafting offices and notices beneath crumpled carbon paper a blueprint stamped "Confidential, War Department," signed by the chief engineer. Not a copy, an original. She looks back at the office door she just exited and realizes this is the 7th time in 6 weeks. Vera is 24 years old. She's worked nights at the Bureau since November 1940, 2 years and 4 months. Born August 3, 1918 in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, her father died in the influenza epidemic of 1919, her mother from tuberculosis in 1939. Vera finished 10th grade, then worked at a hosiery mill until she found this job in the city. Lives in a women's boarding house on Callow Hill Street, shares a room with 3 other girls, makes $12 a week. Never married. No children. No connections, no prospects, just a mop bucket, rags, and endless corridors in a converted textile warehouse on Delaware Avenue. The boarding house is run by Mrs. Kowalski, a Polish widow who charges $4 a week for a bed and 2 meals. Vera's roommates are all factory workers: Dorothy from the munitions plant, Helen from the textile mill, Agnes from the cannery. They work day shifts. Vera works nights. They pass each other like ghosts, leave notes about borrowed stockings and split rent, sleep in rotation. The room smells of cheap soap and cigarette smoke. One window overlooks an alley. 4 narrow beds, 1 shared dresser, a mirror with a crack down the middle. Vera keeps her belongings in a cardboard suitcase under her bed: 2 dresses, 1 pair of good shoes, her mother's Bible, $3 in savings. Macklin Engineering Bureau designs specialized tooling and machinery for defense contractors. 3 buildings, 190 employees, secured government facility. The main building used to be a textile warehouse. High ceilings, large windows, wooden floors that creak. The Bureau converted it in 1938 when the defense contracts started coming. Now, it produces designs for hydraulic presses, precision grinders, metal stamping equipment, machines that make other machines. Machines that make parts for tanks, aircraft, artillery shells. Vera cleans the second-floor offices: 12 rooms, hallway, lavatory, stairwell. Every night, 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. The engineers leave. She stays behind with her bucket and brush. The offices smell of cigarette smoke, blueprint ammonia, and machine oil. On the desks lie rolled drafting papers, calculation sheets, folders with rubber stamps. The walls are covered with technical diagrams, production schedules, photographs of machinery. Some offices have windows overlooking the Delaware River. Others face the rail yard where freight trains rumble past carrying steel, coal, manufactured goods. Vera can't read technical drawings, but after 2 years she's learned to recognize the markings: restricted, confidential, secret, top secret, War Department. Documents with those stamps are supposed to be locked in filing safes. Every office has one: gray metal boxes with combination locks, government issued. At the end of each workday, engineers are supposed to secure all classified materials. Lock them away. That's the rule. But sometimes, occasionally, papers with corner seals end up in wastebaskets. Vera always assumed these were damaged copies, misprints, calculation errors, drafts that didn't work out. She never thought about it. Until February 1943. February 2nd, 1943, Tuesday. Vera empties the basket from Office 214. Section Chief for Hydraulic Systems, Mr. Dalton Whitmore. 48 years old, tall, steel gray hair, always wears suspenders and a vest, wire-rimmed spectacles. Master's degree in mechanical engineering from Lehigh University. Been with the Bureau since 1929, 14 years. Started as a junior engineer, worked his way up, respected by colleagues. Known for precision, attention to detail. Lives in Chestnut Hill with his wife and 2 teenage sons. Drives a Buick sedan. Member of the Rotary Club. Nothing unusual about him. Just another engineer doing war work. His office, corner location, 2 tall windows overlooking the rail yard, large drafting table covered with blueprints and calculation sheets, filing cabinet with project folders, gray safe against the interior wall. The safe has a brass nameplate, property of U.S. War Department. Vera cleans his office every night. Whitmore usually leaves at 5:30, door unlocked for the cleaning staff. His basket always full, paper scraps, carbon sheets, cigarette butts, sometimes candy wrappers, occasionally a newspaper folded to the crossword puzzle. That evening, Vera carried the basket down the hallway toward the service stairs. Her shoe caught on loose linoleum. The flooring near the stairwell has been warped for months. Maintenance keeps promising to fix it, but never does. The basket tipped, papers scattered across the floor. Vera muttered under her breath, knelt down to collect them. Most were scraps, torn edges of carbon paper, calculations crossed out in pencil, a memo about a production schedule. Then she saw, among the ordinary waste, 4 sheets of vellum, folded twice. Heavy paper, the expensive kind used for final blueprints. She unfolded the first sheet carefully. Blueprint for a hydraulic press component. Detailed cross-section showing valve assemblies, pressure chambers, control mechanisms. Top right corner stamped Secret, War Department in red ink. Below that, a project number, WD-4427-B. Below that, the signature of Chief Engineer Leonard Marsh in black fountain pen. Below that, the Bureau seal, an eagle clutching gears, the words Macklin Engineering Bureau, Philadelphia, PA. The date, January 28, 1943. 5 days ago. Vera stared at it. Her hands started to shake. She looked at the other 3 sheets, same stamps, same signatures, different designs. All originals, all classified, all signed by the chief engineer himself. She knew what this meant. She'd heard the other cleaning women talk about document security. They gossiped during breaks in the basement break room, shared stories about engineers who got fired for leaving classified papers unsecured, about surprise inspections by military security officers, about the strict protocols. Originals with security stamps can't simply be thrown away. They have to be inventoried by a control board, logged in a disposal register, destroyed in the presence of security officers, the destruction witnessed and recorded. Usually, they're burned in the Bureau's incinerator under supervision. Then the ashes are documented. Yet here they were, in a trash basket like scrap paper. Vera looked up and down the hallway. Empty. Quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She could hear the radiator clanking at the far end of the corridor. Outside the window, snow was falling, light flakes drifting past the streetlights. She gathered the 4 sheets, folded them, placed them carefully at the bottom of the basket, covered them with the ordinary trash, stood up, brushed off her knees, continued down the hallway, down the service stairs to the basement. The basement of Macklin Bureau is a maze of narrow corridors, storage rooms, mechanical spaces. Pipes run along the ceiling, wrapped in asbestos insulation. The air smells of coal dust and mildew. At the far end, past the storage rooms, is the boiler room. The furnace man, old Samuel, works there, a black man in his 70s who's been with the Bureau since it was a textile warehouse. He tends the coal furnace that heats the building, maintains the boiler, and burns the trash in a metal drum next to the furnace. Vera found him dozing in his chair near the furnace, a newspaper spread across his lap. The furnace roared, orange light flickering through the grate. The room was stifling hot. Samuel woke when Vera entered, blinked at her. "Evening, Miss Hadley." "Evening, Samuel." She carried the basket to the burn drum, a 50-gallon steel barrel with air holes punched in the sides, a metal grate covering the top. The drum was full of ash and charred paper from earlier burnings. Samuel would empty it in the morning, carry the ash out to the alley for collection. Vera reached into the basket, pulled out handfuls of ordinary trash, dropped them onto the grate. Paper caught fire immediately, curled and blackened. Samuel watched with half-closed eyes, uninterested. Then, Vera reached the bottom of the basket, the 4 vellum sheets. She hesitated. Her hand hovered over them. Something in her chest tightened. A voice in her head said, "Don't burn these. This is wrong. Someone needs to know." She glanced at Samuel. He dozed off again, chin on his chest. Vera pulled the 4 sheets from the basket, folded them tight, tucked them under her apron. Then, she dumped the rest of the trash onto the grate, watched it burn. "You have a good night, Samuel." He mumbled something, didn't open his eyes. Vera climbed back upstairs, returned to the supply closet where she kept her coat and handbag, locked the door behind her, took out the 4 sheets, unfolded them, examined them again under the single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. The diagrams meant nothing to her. Lines and circles and numbers, technical annotations she couldn't read. But the stamps and signatures were clear. These were important. These were secret. These weren't supposed to be in the trash. She folded them carefully, slid them into her handbag beneath her coin purse and house keys. Finished her shift, mopped the remaining hallway, cleaned the lavatory, emptied the other waste baskets. All routine. All normal. At 10 o'clock, she punched her time card, put on her coat, walked out into the February night. The boarding house was dark when she arrived. Mrs. Kowalski had left a lamp burning in the front hall, as always. Vera climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor, entered her room quietly. Dorothy was snoring softly in her bed. Helen's bed was empty. She was working a double shift at the mill. Agnes slept curled on her side, facing the wall. Vera changed into her nightgown, knelt beside her bed, lifted the mattress. Slid the 4 sheets underneath, near the head of the bed where the mattress met the iron frame. Lowered the mattress carefully. Climbed into bed, pulled the thin blanket up to her chin. Couldn't sleep. Lay staring at the ceiling, listening to Dorothy snore, listening to the radiator hiss and clank, thinking, what did I just do? What am I supposed to do now? She didn't know, but she knew she couldn't burn those papers. February 16th, 1943, Tuesday, 2 weeks later. Vera cleaned Whitmore's office again. Same routine. Empty the waste baskets, dust the desk, mop the floor. She dumped his basket into her rolling trash bin, wheeled it into the hallway. Later, in the supply closet, she sorted through the contents. Most was ordinary waste, but near the bottom, 3 more sheets of vellum. Blueprints, stamped confidential, signed by Leonard Marsh, dated February 14th, 1943. 2 days ago. Vera's stomach dropped. So it wasn't a one-time mistake. This was happening again. She took the 3 sheets, hid them under her apron, burned the rest of the trash. That night, at the boarding house, she added them to the 4 already hidden under her mattress. 7 documents now. All originals, all classified, all from Whitmore's office. March 2nd, 1943, Tuesday. In Whitmore's basket, 2 more blueprint sheets, stamped Secret, War Department, Marsh's signature, dated February 28, 1943. Vera took them, 9 documents under her mattress. March 9th, 1943, Tuesday. Another sheet, stamped Top Secret, War Department, the highest classification. Vera had never seen one of these before, didn't even know the Bureau worked on top-secret projects. But here it was in Whitmore's trash. She took it. 10 documents. She started watching more carefully now. Every night, cleaning Office 214, she checked the basket methodically, sorted through every scrap of paper. Most nights, nothing unusual. But some nights, Tuesdays usually, there would be 1 or 2 or 3 blueprint sheets. Always originals, always stamped, always signed by Marsh. March 15th, another original blueprint, Secret stamp, dated March 13th, 11 documents. March 22nd, 3 sheets, all restricted, dated March 18th, March 19th, March 20th. 3 consecutive days. 14 documents total. Vera couldn't understand what was happening. Why would Whitmore throw originals into the wastebasket? These weren't copies. These weren't damaged. These were finished, signed, sealed blueprints. The kind that should be locked in the safe at the end of every workday. Maybe it's an accident. Maybe he forgets to lock them up, realizes later, panics, throws them away? But 14 times in 7 weeks, that's not forgetting. That's a pattern. She thought about saying something. But to whom? The other janitors? They'd think she was crazy. The bureau director? He'd ask why she was taking papers from the trash instead of burning them. The military security officers who sometimes visited to inspect the safes? They'd want to know why she waited 7 weeks to report it. And what if she was wrong? What if there was a legitimate reason for this? What if these were copies that looked like originals? What if Whitmore had permission to dispose of them this way? She'd lose her job for making false accusations. Or worse, they'd think she was stealing classified documents herself. So she said nothing. Just kept collecting the papers, hiding them under her mattress, waiting for something to make sense. March 29th, 1943, Monday. The day everything changed. Vera arrived for her shift at 6 o'clock. The hallways were still busy, engineers finishing work, secretaries leaving for the day, the night watchman making his first rounds. She collected her cleaning supplies from the storage closet, filled her bucket with hot water and soap, began her routine on the second floor. At 6:20, she approached office 214. The door was ajar. She could hear Whitmore's voice inside, talking on the telephone. Normally, he left by 5:30, but tonight he was still there. Vera hesitated in the hallway. Should she skip this office, come back later, or wait until he left? She stood there with her bucket, uncertain. Then she heard him say, 3 sheets, usual arrangement, Thursday. Yes, originals. Vera froze. Whitmore's voice was calm, matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a routine work order. But those words, usual arrangement, originals, made her blood run cold. She moved closer to the door, stood just outside, listening. The door was open about 6 inches. She could see part of Whitmore's desk, the edge of his chair, could see his hand holding the telephone receiver. Yes, Thursday evening. The voice on the other end said something Vera couldn't hear. Whitmore responded, same location, the usual drop, no changes. Pause. Then, payment on delivery, as always. Vera's heart hammered in her chest. Payment. Drop. Usual arrangement. This wasn't about work. This was about something else. Whitmore continued. I'll have the package ready by 6. You can collect after 7 when the cleaning staff finishes. The furnace room is clear by then. Another pause. Whitmore laughed softly. Don't worry. Nobody pays attention to trash. He hung up the phone. Vera heard his chair scrape. She turned quickly, walked away down the hallway, bucket sloshing. Turned the corner, pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst through her chest. She heard Whitmore's office door open, heard his footsteps in the hallway, going the other direction toward the main stairs. A minute later, the sound of the stairwell door closing. Vera waited 5 more minutes, then walked back to office 214. The door was still ajar. She pushed it open, looked inside. The office looked normal. Desk, chair, drafting table, filing cabinet, safe. Everything in its place. But now Vera was looking with different eyes. She set down her bucket, walked to Whitmore's desk. The surface was clear except for a desk lamp, a pencil holder, a calendar, a framed photograph of his wife and sons. She opened the top drawer. Pens, pencils, paper clips, rubber stamps. Second drawer. Letterhead, envelopes, carbon paper. Third drawer, bottom left, locked. She tried the bottom right drawer. It opened. Inside, a stack of folders, a box of cigars, some loose change, a pocket watch with a broken chain. And underneath the folders, a stack of blueprint sheets, vellum paper. She lifted them out. 6 sheets, all stamped. Secret, confidential, top secret. All signed by Leonard Marsh. All dated within the last 2 weeks. These weren't filed. They weren't in the safe. They were sitting in an unlocked desk drawer like office supplies. Vera's hands shook as she put them back, closed the drawer. She looked at the safe, tried the handle. Locked, as it should be. But how many documents were supposed to be in there? How many were missing? She heard footsteps in the hallway. Panic flooded through her. She grabbed her bucket, started mopping the floor near the door, keeping her head down. The footsteps passed, kept going. Someone heading to another office. Vera finished mopping quickly, emptied the wastebasket. Nothing unusual tonight, just paper scraps, and left. Went to the next office, then the next, completing her rounds. But her mind wasn't on the work. Her mind was replaying that phone conversation. 3 sheets. Usual arrangement. Thursday. Payment on delivery. The furnace room. Nobody pays attention to trash. Whitmore wasn't accidentally throwing away classified documents. He was deliberately putting them in the trash so someone could collect them. Someone who came to the building after the cleaning staff finished. Someone who knew the furnace room was unmonitored in the evenings. Someone who was paying him. This wasn't negligence. This was espionage. Vera went through the rest of her shift in a daze. Mopped floors, emptied wastebaskets, cleaned sinks. Her hands moved automatically while her brain churned. She thought about the documents under her mattress. 14 blueprints. 14 pieces of classified military technology. Designs for machines that would be used to manufacture weapons, equipment, vehicles for the war effort. If those designs reached enemy hands, German intelligence, Japanese military, they could be copied, analyzed, countered. American manufacturing secrets would be compromised. Production would be delayed. Soldiers would die. And she had proof. 14 originals, stamped, signed, dated. All from Whitmore's office, all thrown in the trash over 7 weeks. But what could she do? She was a janitor, nobody important, nobody with authority. If she went to the bureau director, he might not believe her, might think she stole the documents herself, might have her arrested. If she went to the police, they'd refer her to federal authorities, FBI, military intelligence. She'd heard stories about those agencies, tough men in dark suits who interrogated suspects for hours, who didn't trust anyone, who assumed everyone was lying. And if Whitmore found out she reported him, if he had connections, if he was working for dangerous people, she could disappear. Accidents happened. People fell downstairs, got hit by cars, drowned in the river. Vera finished her shift at 10 o'clock. Walked home through the cold March night, barely noticing the wind or the thin snow. Got to the boarding house, climbed to her room. Dorothy and Agnes were asleep. Helen still at work. Vera lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking, I can't do nothing. But I can't put myself in danger. There has to be a way. Then it came to her. Anonymous letter. Send the documents to the FBI with a letter explaining what she saw. No return address, no signature. Let them investigate. They'd find the evidence in Whitmore's office, in his desk drawer, in his phone records. They'd catch him. And she'd be safe. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. She got out of bed, went to the small shared table where the girls kept paper and pens for writing letters home. Found a clean sheet of writing paper, a pencil. Sat at the table in her nightgown, began to write by the light of the hallway lamp coming through the doorway. At the Macklin Engineering Bureau in Philadelphia, Section Chief for Hydraulic Systems Mr. Dalton Whitmore regularly discards original classified defense blueprints in his office wastebasket. She paused, chewed the pencil. Continued. I work as a night janitor. Since February of this year, I have found 17 documents stamped secret, confidential, and top secret War Department. All originals, all signed by Chief Engineer Leonard Marsh. 17. She'd counted wrong earlier. She had 14 under her mattress. But there were 3 more in Whitmore's desk drawer that she saw tonight. 17 total that she knew about. And who knows how many more over the months and years before she started paying attention. She continued writing. I heard Mr. Whitmore on the telephone say, 3 sheets, usual arrangement, Thursday, originals. He also said, payment on delivery, the usual drop, the furnace room. Nobody pays attention to trash. I don't know who he's passing them to, but this has been going on for some time. I believe he is selling or giving classified documents to enemy agents. Documents enclosed. Please investigate. Anonymous. She read it over 3 times, changed some words, rewrote it on a fresh sheet to make it neater, then folded it, set it aside. The next morning, after Dorothy and Agnes left for work, Vera pulled the 14 blueprint sheets from under her mattress, laid them out on her bed, studied them. Some were hydraulic press designs. Others were precision grinding systems. One was a specialized lathe for machining artillery shell casings. Another was a quality control template for aircraft engine components. All critical war production equipment. All classified. All signed by the chief engineer. All dated within the last 7 weeks. She folded them carefully, one by one, found a large manila envelope in the drawer of the shared desk, left over from when Helen's sister sent her some documents. Addressed it in block letters. Federal Bureau of Investigation, U.S. Custom House 2nd and Chestnut Streets, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Urgent. National Security. No return address. She put the letter and the 14 blueprints inside the envelope, sealed it, hid it under her mattress until she could mail it. That day, Tuesday, April 6, 1943, Vera didn't go to work. She told Mrs. Kowalski she was sick, stayed in her room until afternoon. At 3 o'clock, when the streets were busy, she put on her coat, carried the envelope to the post office at Broad and Chestnut, waited in line. When her turn came, handed it to the postal clerk. How would you like to send this? Regular mail is fine. The clerk waited, stamped it, dropped it in the outgoing mail bin. Vera paid, left quickly. Walking back to the boarding house, she felt lighter and terrified. She'd done it. No going back now. Wednesday, April 7th. Vera went to work as usual, cleaned the offices, including Whitmore's. He was there when she arrived, working late again. Looked up when she entered. Evening, Vera. Evening, Mr. Whitmore. He smiled, went back to his work. She cleaned around him, emptied his wastebasket, nothing unusual tonight, and left. He seemed normal, relaxed. No sign he suspected anything. Thursday, April 8th. Whitmore left at 5:30 as usual. Vera cleaned his office, checked his wastebasket carefully. Nothing. No blueprint sheets. Maybe tonight was the night he'd mentioned on the phone, the Thursday drop. But the basket was empty. She checked his desk drawer again, the bottom right. The stack of blueprints was gone. He must have put them somewhere, maybe in the trash, maybe handed them off already. Friday, April 9th. Vera arrived at work. Whitmore's office door closed. She knocked. No answer. Tried the handle. Locked. That was unusual. His door was always left open for cleaning. She asked the night watchman if he knew where Mr. Whitmore was. The watchman shrugged, said he'd already left for the day. Vera finished her other work, came back to office 214 around 8 o'clock. Still locked. She cleaned the hallway instead, checked the wastebasket outside the door. Empty. Something had changed. Whitmore never locked his office, and he always left trash. Saturday and Sunday, Vera's days off. She stayed in her room, anxious. Wondered if the FBI received the envelope. Wondered if they'd started investigating. Wondered if Whitmore somehow found out. Monday, April 12, 1943. Vera arrived at the bureau at 6 o'clock. The moment she entered the building, she knew something was wrong. The atmosphere was different, tense. People were talking in low voices. The receptionist looked nervous. Vera went upstairs to the second floor. At the top of the stairs, she saw two men in dark suits standing in the hallway near the director's office. They weren't bureau employees. They were older, serious-faced, wearing fedoras and long overcoats. One of them had a leather briefcase. The other had a notebook. Federal agents. Vera's stomach dropped. She walked past them, head down, pushing her cleaning cart. Heard fragments of their conversation with Director Brennan. Security review, War Department, document control, unauthorized access. She went to the supply closet, stored her coat, filled her bucket, hands shaking. They were here. The FBI was here. Her letter had worked. But now what? Would they want to talk to her? Would they figure out she sent the letter? She started her cleaning routine, trying to act normal. Mopped the hallway, cleaned the first few offices. Around 7 o'clock, the two agents walked past her, heading toward the stairs. One of them glanced at her, then away. They went downstairs. Vera kept working. At 8 o'clock, Director Brennan emerged from his office, face gray and drawn. He spoke to his secretary. "They're coming back tomorrow, checking all the safes, every single one. We need to prepare an inventory." The secretary nodded, started making notes. Vera finished her shift, left the building, walked home in the dark, mind racing. What did they find? Did they go to Whitmore's office? Did they find evidence? Tuesday, April 13th. The agents returned, 3 of them this time. Vera arrived at 6 and saw them going into Whitmore's office with Director Brennan and another man she didn't recognize, maybe a security officer from the War Department. They stayed in there for hours. At 8 o'clock, Vera saw them emerge, carrying cardboard file boxes. Whitmore walked behind them, face pale, hands in his pockets. No coat, no hat. He looked like he was in shock. They walked him down the stairs. Vera watched from the hallway window as they put him in a black sedan parked at the curb. 2 agents got in with him. The car drove away. The 3rd agent remained in the building, posted outside Whitmore's office. He told Vera the office was off limits, gave her a stern look. She nodded, moved on to clean other rooms. Wednesday, April 14th. Vera arrived at work. Whitmore's office sealed with government tape. A typed notice on the door. Restricted area. No entry. By order of FBI. So it was official. They'd arrested him, or detained him, or whatever they did with suspected spies. Vera worked her shift in a fog. Couldn't believe it had actually happened. Her letter had worked. They'd investigated. They'd found evidence. They'd taken him away. But now came the fear. Would they trace the letter back to her? Thursday, April 15th, late afternoon. Vera was in the supply closet, organizing cleaning supplies, when there was a knock on the door. She opened it. Mrs. Kowalski, the boarding house landlady, stood there looking flustered. "Miss Hadley, you need to come with me. There are men at the house asking for you." Vera's heart stopped. Men? What men? "Federal agents. They left a card, said you need to call this number." Mrs. Kowalski handed her a small white business card. FBI, Philadelphia Field Office, Special Agent Roland Pierce. Vera stared at the card. Her vision blurred at the edges. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" Mrs. Kowalski asked, worried. "No. I don't think so. I don't know." "Well, they seemed very serious. Said it was important." Vera nodded numbly. "Thank you for coming to tell me." Mrs. Kowalski left. Vera sat down on a crate in the supply closet, card in her trembling hand. This was it. They knew. They'd traced the letter. The handwriting, the postmark, something. They knew she sent it. She thought about running, leaving Philadelphia, going back to Wilkes-Barre, hiding with distant relatives. But that would make her look guilty. And guilty of what? She'd done the right thing. She'd reported a spy. That wasn't a crime. But what if they didn't see it that way? What if they thought she was involved? What if they thought she and Whitmore were working together and she turned on him? Vera finished her shift mechanically, barely aware of what she was doing. At 10 o'clock, she left the bureau, walked 2 blocks to a payphone. Stood there in the cold for 5 minutes, staring at the card. Finally dropped a nickel in the slot, dialed the number. A man's voice answered. FBI, Philadelphia, Pierce speaking. This is Vera Hadley. I was told to call. Miss Hadley, thank you for calling. We need to speak with you regarding a matter of national security. Can you come to our office tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock? What is this about? We'd rather discuss it in person. 2nd and Chestnut, U.S. Custom House, 3rd floor. Ask for Special Agent Pierce. 10 o'clock. You're not in any trouble, Miss Hadley. We just need to ask you some questions. Questions about what? About Dalton Whitmore. About the documents you sent us. Vera's breath caught. So they did know. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. How did you know it was me? We'll discuss that tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Please be prompt. He hung up. Vera stood in the phone booth, receiver buzzing in her hand. They knew. They knew everything. She'd thought she was being clever, sending an anonymous letter, but they'd figured it out somehow. She hung up the phone, walked back to the boarding house in a daze. Didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what would happen tomorrow. Friday, April 16th, 1943, 9:45 a.m. Vera stood outside the U.S. Custom House at 2nd and Chestnut. A massive stone building, columns at the entrance, American flags hanging above the doorway. People in business attire hurried in and out, government workers, attorneys, businessmen. Vera wore her best dress, navy blue, modest, clean. Her good shoes. Her mother's small pearl earrings, the only jewelry she owned. She wanted to look respectable. Trustworthy. She climbed the steps, entered the building. The lobby was vast, marble floors, high ceilings, the sound of footsteps echoing. A directory on the wall listed offices. FBI Field Office, 3rd floor. She took the elevator, arrived at the 3rd floor. A frosted glass door with gold lettering. Federal Bureau of Investigation. She opened it, entered a small waiting room. A secretary sat behind a desk, typing. I'm here to see Special Agent Pierce. 10 o'clock appointment. Vera Hadley. The secretary checked a ledger, nodded. 1 moment, please. She picked up a telephone, spoke quietly, hung up. He'll be right with you. Please have a seat. Vera sat in one of the wooden chairs along the wall. The room was plain. Government-issue furniture, wanted posters on the walls, a single window overlooking the street. She waited, hands folded in her lap, trying to stay calm. At exactly 10 o'clock, a door opened. A man appeared, tall, maybe 40 years old, dark suit, white shirt, thin tie, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He looked at Vera. Miss Hadley? She stood. Yes. I'm Special Agent Roland Pierce. Thank you for coming. Please, follow me. He led her down a hallway, into a small office. Bare walls, metal desk, 2 chairs, filing cabinet. Another man was already there, younger, maybe 30, also in a suit, holding a stenographer's notebook. Pierce gestured to a chair. Please, sit down. This is Agent Cassidy. He'll be taking notes. Vera sat. Her hands were shaking. She folded them in her lap to hide it. Pierce sat across from her, opened a folder on the desk. Vera saw her letter inside, her handwriting, the 14 blueprint sheets stacked beside it. Miss Hadley, I want to start by saying you're not in any trouble. You did the right thing by contacting us. We need your help to complete our investigation.
Vera nodded, didn't trust her voice.
Pierce slid the letter across the desk. Did you write this? She nodded again. I need you to say it aloud for the record, please. Yes, I wrote it. And you enclosed these documents? He indicated the blueprints. Yes. Pierce leaned back in his chair, studying her. How did you obtain these documents, Miss Hadley? I found them, in Mr. Whitmore's wastebasket, over several weeks. You took them from his wastebasket instead of disposing of them? Yes. Why? Vera swallowed. Because they had stamps, security stamps. I knew they weren't supposed to be thrown away like regular trash. How long have you worked at Macklin Bureau? Since November 1940, 2 years, almost 5 months. And in that time, had you ever seen classified documents in wastebaskets before? No, never. That's why I noticed. It was unusual. Pierce made a note. Walk me through the timeline.
When did you first find documents in Whitmore's basket?
February 2nd, this year. There were 4 blueprint sheets. I took them home, hid them. Why didn't you report it immediately? I wasn't sure it was wrong. I thought maybe it was an accident. Maybe he didn't realize what he'd thrown away. But you took them anyway? Yes, just in case. Just in case of what? In case it wasn't an accident. Pierce nodded slowly. Go on. What happened next? 2 weeks later, I found more. 3 sheets. Then 2 weeks after that, 2 more. It kept happening. Every week or 2, more documents in his basket. How many total did you collect before sending them to us? 14. The ones in that folder. Not 17, as your letter states? Vera hesitated. There were 3 more in his desk drawer.
I saw them but didn't take them.
How did you see inside his desk? The door to his office was open while he was on the telephone. I was cleaning the hallway. I heard him talking. What did you hear? She repeated the conversation as accurately as she could remember. 3 sheets, usual arrangement, Thursday, originals. Payment on delivery, the usual drop. The furnace room. Nobody pays attention to trash. Pierce and Cassidy exchanged glances. Cassidy wrote rapidly in his notebook. Pierce leaned forward. Miss Hadley, this is very important. Did Whitmore see you listening? No, the door was only open a few inches. I was in the hallway. Did anyone else hear this conversation? Not that I know of. The floor was empty. It was after 6 o'clock. Everyone had gone home except him. And after you heard this, you decided to send the letter? Yes, I realized it wasn't an accident. He was doing it on purpose. Why didn't you come to us in person? Vera looked down at her hands. I was afraid. If I came in person, you'd know who I was. Whitmore might find out. He might... I don't know. I was afraid he'd hurt me. Or I'd lose my job. So you sent an anonymous letter? Yes. But we found you anyway. How? Vera asked quietly. Pierce smiled slightly. The postmark, the paper, the handwriting. We showed your letter to Director Brennan at the Bureau. He recognized your handwriting from your employment application. We compared them. They matched. Vera felt her face flush. I tried to disguise it. You did reasonably well, but handwriting analysis is difficult to fool. Am I in trouble for taking the documents? No, you did the right thing. If you hadn't taken them, they'd have been burned and we'd have no evidence. What happens now? Now, Pierce said, we need you to tell us everything you know about Dalton Whitmore. His schedule, his habits, who visits his office, any unusual behavior you've noticed. For the next hour, Vera answered questions.
She described Whitmore's routine, arrival time, departure time, who he met with, his telephone calls. She described his office layout, the location of the safe,
the filing cabinets, the desk drawers. She described the basement furnace room where trash was burned, how the system worked. Pierce and Cassidy listened carefully, asked follow-up questions, took detailed notes. Finally, Pierce closed his folder. "Miss Hadley, we've arrested Mr. Whitmore. He's being held on federal charges of espionage, theft of government property, and conspiracy." Vera's breath caught. Espionage. Yes, we found additional evidence in his office, a ledger documenting payments he received over the past 18 months. We believe he's been passing defense blueprints to a German intelligence network operating in the New York area. 18 months? At minimum, maybe longer. We're still investigating the full extent of the damage. Vera felt sick. 18 months. How many documents?
How many secrets passed to the enemy?
Pierce continued. "Miss Hadley, what you did, sending us those documents, you may have prevented serious damage to the war effort. Equipment designs Whitmore compromised were intended for critical manufacturing operations. If those designs had reached enemy hands and been successfully copied, it could have given Axis powers insights into our production methods. That could have led to delays, sabotage, loss of American lives." Vera sat silent, trying to process it. "We'll need you to testify when this goes to trial, federal court. The trial will likely be held in June. Whitmore's defense attorney will have the right to cross-examine you. Your identity will be protected as much as legally possible, but you will have to appear in court. Are you willing?" Vera thought about it. Thought about standing in a courtroom, facing Whitmore, facing his lawyer, telling her story in front of judges and juries. Terrifying. But necessary. "Yes," she said.
I'll testify.
"Good. You'll be subpoenaed formally. We'll provide you with protection if needed. In the meantime, don't discuss this with anyone. Not your roommates, not other workers at the Bureau. Whitmore may have associates who are still at large. We don't want them knowing you're cooperating with us." "Understood." Pierce stood, extended his hand. "Thank you, Miss Hadley. You're a patriot. What you did took courage." Vera shook his hand. It didn't feel like courage. It felt like fear and confusion and stumbling through darkness. She left the FBI office, walked out into the April sunshine. The streets of Philadelphia were busy, people going about their lives, unaware that a spy had just been arrested, that blueprints for war machinery had been recovered, that a janitor had stopped an intelligence leak. Vera walked back to the boarding house, climbed to her room, lay down on her bed, stared at the ceiling, and for the first time in weeks, she slept. Weeks passed.
Whitmore remained in federal custody.
The Bureau hired a new section chief for hydraulic systems, an older engineer named Frank Morrison, transferred from a Bureau office in Pittsburgh. Vera cleaned his office like any other. The sealed tape came off Office 214. Life returned to normal. Except it didn't. Vera knew what she'd done, knew that she'd changed something. She wasn't just a janitor anymore. She was a witness, a patriot, someone who'd made a difference. And that feeling, small as it was, grew. May 10th, 1943. Director Brennan called Vera into his office. It was the first time she'd ever been inside. Wood paneling, large mahogany desk, American flag in the corner, photographs of Bureau projects on the walls. Brennan, a heavy-set man in his 60s with thick, horn-rimmed spectacles, gestured to a leather chair in front of his desk. "Sit down, Miss Hadley." Vera sat, nervous.
Brennan's office was impressive. Shelves filled with engineering manuals, a large drafting table covered with blueprints, windows overlooking Delaware Avenue. Brennan settled into his chair, steepled his fingers. "I've been briefed by the FBI on what happened. What you did." He paused, looked at her seriously. "I want you to know the Bureau is grateful. You showed exceptional integrity in a difficult situation. I saw something wrong, sir. Most people would have looked the other way, burned those papers and forgotten about it. You didn't.
That took courage. Vera didn't know what to say. Thank you, sir. Brennan opened a file folder on his desk. I've reviewed your employment file. You've been with us 2.5 years. Reliable. Punctual. No complaints. You do good work. Vera nodded. How old are you, Miss Hadley? 24, sir. And you finished 10th grade? Yes, sir. Ever think about continuing your education? Vera blinked, caught off guard. I couldn't afford it, sir. I need to work. The Bureau has a program. We sponsor employees to attend night school, secretarial training, bookkeeping, technical drafting, even engineering for those who are suited to it. We cover tuition and books. You continue working your regular hours, take classes in the evenings. Interested? Vera stared at him. Engineering? Or drafting? Or secretarial work? Whatever you're capable of. Brennan leaned forward. Miss Hadley, I think you're capable of more than mopping floors. You noticed those classified documents when no one else did. You understood their significance. You acted on your judgment. Those are qualities we value in our engineers. Vera's throat was tight. Engineering. Her. A girl from Wilkes-Barre who barely passed 10th grade mathematics. Working with blueprints and machines and numbers. I don't know if I could do it, sir. Why not? I wasn't good at school. Math was hard. Math is hard for everyone at first, but it can be learned. And you've already shown you can learn. You learn to recognize security classifications. You learn to understand the importance of those documents. That's intelligence, Miss Hadley. That's the ability to observe, analyze, and act. That's what makes a good engineer. Vera felt something shift inside her. A tiny spark of possibility. Think about it, Brennan said. Talk to the night school administrator. See what courses are available. If you decide you want to try, come back and tell me. We'll get you enrolled. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. And Miss Hadley, I'm glad you were paying attention. Vera left his office in a daze, walked down the stairs back to the supply closet, stood there among the mops and buckets thinking, engineering? Could I really? That night, lying in bed while her roommates slept, Vera thought about it seriously. What would it mean? Night school 4 or 5 evenings a week. Classes in mathematics, physics, technical drawing. Years of study. Hard work. And at the end, maybe, a chance at something better than scrubbing floors. She thought about her mother, who died coughing blood in a tenement in Wilkes-Barre, who worked her whole life in laundries and canneries and never had a chance, who told Vera before she died, "Don't end up like me. Find something better." 3 days later, Vera went back to Director Brennan's office and told him, "I want to try." "Good," he said. "I'll arrange it." Within a week, Vera was enrolled in evening classes at Drexel Institute starting that fall. Technical drafting, mechanical fundamentals, mathematics for engineers. She'd continue working nights at the Bureau, attend class 4 evenings a week. It would take years, but she'd have a chance. And that was enough. June 1943. Trial of Dalton Whitmore. Federal Courtroom, Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Vera testified for 3 hours on a Thursday afternoon. The courtroom was large. Wood paneling, high windows, rows of benches filled with reporters, government officials, curious spectators. Whitmore sat at the defense table in a dark suit, hands folded, face expressionless. His attorney, a sharp-faced man named Edmund Carr, paced in front of the jury box. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Martin Dwyer, questioned Vera first. He asked her to describe finding the documents, the timeline, the phone conversation she overheard, her decision to send the letter. Vera answered clearly, keeping her voice steady. She'd practiced with Agent Pierce, who coached her on how to testify. Speak to the jury, not the lawyers. Stick to facts. Don't speculate. Then, Carr cross-examined her. He tried to discredit her,
Suggested she fabricated the evidence. Suggested she had a personal grudge against Whitmore. Suggested she stole the documents herself and blamed him. Miss Hadley, isn't it true that you were reprimanded by Mr. Whitmore for poor cleaning performance in January of this year? No, sir. That never happened. Are you certain? Yes, sir. Then why would you target him specifically? I didn't target him. I found documents in his wastebasket, that's all. Carr showed her the blueprints. These documents are highly technical. How do we know you understood what they were? I recognized the security stamps, sir. I knew they weren't supposed to be in the trash. But you can't read blueprints, can you? No, sir. So you don't actually know if these documents are important or not. I know they're classified. The stamps say so. Stamps can be forged. These are signed by the chief engineer. Are you saying they're forgeries? I'm saying you don't know. The prosecutor objected. The judge sustained it. Carr moved on, trying different angles, but Vera stayed calm, answered every question truthfully. The prosecutor presented additional evidence. The ledger found in Whitmore's desk showing coded payment entries, dates matching missing documents, handwriting analysis confirming Whitmore wrote the entries, testimony from other Bureau employees about Whitmore's access to classified materials, FBI testimony about the German intelligence network in New York, intercepts of communications mentioning a source inside a Philadelphia defense contractor. The jury deliberated 6 hours, returned with a verdict. Guilty on all counts: espionage, theft of government property, conspiracy to aid the enemy. Sentence: death by electrocution. The judge set the execution for September. Whitmore showed no reaction when the sentence was read, just sat there staring straight ahead. Vera, sitting in the back of the courtroom, felt numb. A man would die because of what she'd done. Yes, he was a traitor. Yes, he'd sold secrets to the enemy. But still, death. She left the courthouse feeling hollowed out. 2 weeks later, Special Agent Pierce visited her at the boarding house, brought her a certificate in a leather folder, United States War Department, Certificate of Civilian Commendation for Patriotic Service. Fancy calligraphy, official seals, signed by the Secretary of War Henry L. Stimson. Doesn't come with money, Pierce said, but it's official recognition. You helped protect the country, Miss Hadley. That matters. Vera looked at the certificate, her full name in formal script, Vera Catherine Hadley. She'd never seen her full name on an official document before, always just Vera or Miss Hadley. Thank you, she whispered. No, Pierce said. Thank you. He left. Vera hung the certificate on the wall next to her bed, between a faded photograph of her mother and a postcard of Niagara Falls that Dorothy had sent her once. Fall, 1943. Vera began night classes at Drexel Institute. Classes ran 6 to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday. She'd work her shift at the Bureau from 6 to 10, then go straight to class without dinner, study until midnight, sleep 5 hours, wake up and study more before her next shift. It was brutal. The coursework was harder than anything she'd ever attempted. Mathematics she'd never seen, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, physics, forces, motion, energy, mechanical theory, how machines work, how forces transfer through systems. She failed her first quiz in technical drawing, couldn't understand orthographic projection, the concept of showing three-dimensional objects in two-dimensional views. She almost quit. Sat in her room one night in October, staring at a failed exam paper, thinking, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. Then her instructor, Professor Leonard Aldridge, an older man who'd worked in machine shops for 30 years before teaching, asked her to stay after class. Miss Hadley, you're trying too hard to memorize formulas. Engineering isn't about memorization. It's about understanding how things work. Here. He pulled a small mechanical linkage from his desk drawer, an assembly of rods and pins that moved when you pushed it. Handed it to her. Take this home. Study it. Take it apart. Put it back together.
Feel how it works. Understand the motion. Then, draw it. Vera took the linkage home, spent hours that night turning it in her hands, testing each joint, watching how pushing one rod made another move, how the angles changed, how forces transferred. Then she drew it from memory, not copying from a textbook, but from understanding. Next class, she showed Aldridge her drawing. He smiled. "Now you're learning, Miss Hadley." From then on, Vera approached every problem that way, not as abstract numbers, but as real physical things. When she studied forces, she imagined pushing a car, lifting a box, pulling a rope. When she studied hydraulics, she imagined water flowing through pipes, pressure building in tanks. Made it real, made it something she could touch. Her grades improved. By Christmas, she passed all her courses. Not top of the class, but passing. That was enough. 1944. The war continued. Bureau expanded production. More defense contracts, more engineers hired, more overtime. Vera kept cleaning, kept studying. She moved through her courses methodically. Strength of materials, machine design, hydraulics, thermodynamics. Professors respected her diligence. Some engineers at the Bureau started hearing about her, the janitor taking engineering classes. A few were encouraging. Most ignored her. A few mocked her. One evening in March 1944, Vera was cleaning the office of Gerald Stokes, a young engineer fresh out of college. He was working late on a stress calculation that wouldn't balance. Frustrated, he crumpled the paper, threw it toward his wastebasket. Missed. The paper landed on the floor. Vera picked it up, started to throw it away, then paused, looked at the calculation, saw something. "Excuse me, Mr. Stokes?" He looked up, annoyed. "What?" I think there's a sign error in your third line." "What?" "Your force vector. You have it as positive, but based on your diagram, the force is pulling down. Shouldn't it be negative?" Stokes stared at her, pulled the paper from her hand, examined it. His face changed. "Jesus Christ, you're right." He looked at her. You're the cleaning woman." "I'm taking engineering classes at Drexel, sir. We just covered vector mechanics last week." Stokes sat back, stunned. "Well, I'll be damned." He smiled. "Thank you, Miss Hadley." "Thank you, Miss Hadley. You just saved me 2 hours of troubleshooting." "You're welcome, sir." Word spread quickly through the Bureau. The janitor corrected an engineer's mathematics. Some engineers found it amusing. Others found it embarrassing. Director Brennan heard about it, called Vera in again. "Stokes tells me you caught an error in his force analysis." "It was obvious, sir. The vector was pointing the wrong direction." "Obvious to someone who understands vector mechanics." "How are your classes going?" "Well, sir, I'll finish my certificate program this summer." "Certificate's not a degree," Brennan said. "I know, sir, but I can't afford a full engineering degree. 4 more years of tuition and books." "What if the Bureau sponsored you? Full scholarship. You'd work part-time instead of full-time. Lighter cleaning duties on weekends only. Attend classes during the day. Graduate in 1948. Come back to us as a junior engineer." Vera couldn't breathe. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say yes." She did. September 1944. Vera enrolled in Drexel's full 4-year Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering program, fully sponsored by Macklin Bureau. She reduced her work hours to weekends only, Saturday and Sunday mornings, 6 hours each day, enough to cover her room and board at the boarding house. The Bureau paid her tuition, books, and a small stipend for living expenses. She attended classes full-time Monday through Friday. The workload was crushing. Advanced calculus, differential equations, thermodynamics, materials science, electrical theory, fluid mechanics. She studied constantly, lived on coffee and sandwiches, barely slept. Other students, Almost all men, many veterans back from the war, looked at her skeptically. A woman in engineering? Especially one who used to be a janitor? Some were decent, treated her like anyone else. Others made comments, tried to undermine her, told crude jokes to make her uncomfortable. One professor, Dr. Harrison Webb, an older man who taught machine design, openly said in class, "Women lack the spatial reasoning necessary for mechanical engineering. It's biological. Their brains are structured differently." Vera said nothing, just studied harder, aced his exams. By 1945, she'd proven herself, ranked in the top third of her class. The men stopped commenting. She was just another student. She worked summer internships at the Bureau, assisting senior engineers on real defense projects, learned drafting techniques, manufacturing processes, quality control procedures, saw her calculations turn into actual machines, presses, lathes, precision grinders rolling off production lines, shipped to factories making tanks and aircraft and artillery. August 1945. The war ended. Japan surrendered. Celebrations in the streets. Vera was in her third year of studies. The Bureau shifted from military contracts to industrial machinery, equipment for automobile factories, steel mills, construction firms. Many engineers left for better-paying jobs elsewhere. Brennan asked Vera if she'd commit to returning after graduation. She agreed without hesitation. June 1948. Vera Hadley graduated from Drexel Institute of Technology with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. She was 29 years old, the only woman in her graduating class of 47. She wore a cap and gown, walked across the stage, received her diploma. Her roommates from the boarding house attended, Dorothy, Helen, Agnes, all cheering. Mrs. Kowalski came too, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Vera looked at the diploma. Her name in Latin, Vera Catherine Hadley, Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. She'd done it. September 1948. Vera returned to Macklin Bureau as a junior design engineer. Salary $35 a week, triple what she'd made as a janitor. She had a desk now, in a shared office with 3 other junior engineers. Had a drafting table, a filing cabinet, a telephone. Wore dresses instead of work smocks. Carried a briefcase instead of a mop bucket. Her first assignment: redesign a hydraulic control valve for a metal stamping press used in an automobile plant in Detroit. She worked under senior engineer Martin Crowley, a fair man who treated her professionally. Vera designed the valve carefully, calculated the pressure tolerances, drew the specifications. The valve improved performance by 12%, reduced manufacturing costs by 8%. Crowley praised her work in front of the engineering staff. Some older engineers resented her, thought she'd been promoted for political reasons, not merit. Thought Brennan was just trying to look progressive by hiring a woman. They gave her the grunt work, the tedious calculations, the projects nobody else wanted. Vera did it all without complaint. Did it well. Gradually, the quality of her work spoke for itself. 1950s. Vera advanced steadily through the ranks, junior engineer to senior engineer. Led her own projects by 1953. Designed hydraulic systems for industrial presses used in automobile manufacturing, steel production, heavy machinery fabrication. Her designs were practical, efficient, easy to manufacture. Clients started requesting her specifically. By 1955, she was senior design engineer, supervising 3 junior engineers. Salary, $70 a week, enough to live comfortably. She bought a car, a used 1952 Plymouth sedan, moved out of the boarding house into her own apartment on Spruce Street. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, bathroom with a real tub. Her own place. No roommates, no shared anything. She decorated simply: a sofa, a table, a bed, a bookshelf filled with engineering textbooks. Hung her diploma on the wall, her War Department certificate beside it. She never married. Men asked occasionally, other engineers, salesmen she met at trade shows, a lawyer from her church. She declined politely. Didn't want the complications. Work was enough. 1960. The Bureau promoted Vera to Chief of Hydraulic Systems Section, the same position Dalton Whitmore had held 17 years earlier. Same office, 214. She sat at that drafting table where he'd once sat, looked out those same windows at the rail yard, supervised the same team of engineers. The irony wasn't lost on her. Director Brennan, now 78 and semi-retired, attended her promotion ceremony in the conference room. Shook her hand in front of the assembled staff. 17 years ago, you were mopping this floor.
Now you run the department. I'm proud of you, Vera.
Thank you, sir, for giving me the chance. You earned it yourself, Brennan said. Every bit of it. Vera settled into her new role, managed 12 engineers, approved project designs, coordinated with clients, oversaw budgets. Her reputation grew steadily. She became known in Philadelphia's industrial engineering community as one of the most skilled hydraulic designers in the region. Was invited to give lectures at Drexel, serve on professional society committees, mentor young engineers. Several of her mentees were women, rare in the field but slowly increasing. Vera encouraged them quietly, helped them navigate the hostility and skepticism she'd faced, told them, "Do good work. That's the only thing that matters." 1965. Leonard Marsh, the Bureau's chief engineer, the man whose signatures Vera had seen on those stolen blueprints 22 years earlier, retired. The board of directors considered replacements. Vera was among the candidates. She had seniority, experience, client relationships, a strong project record. Some board members resisted. A woman as chief engineer? Unprecedented. What would clients think? What would the engineering staff think? But her record was undeniable. Her projects came in on budget, on schedule. Clients trusted her. Even the skeptical engineers on her team respected her competence. The board compromised. Appointed her assistant chief engineer, second in command to the new chief, Wallace Kern, a capable engineer from the Bureau's Pittsburgh office. Vera accepted, knew it was likely as high as she'd go. The ceiling was there, invisible but real. 1970. Vera, 51 years old, assistant chief engineer, supervising 30 engineers across 4 technical sections. Salary $180 a week. Lived alone in her apartment. Drove a newer car, a Ford Galaxy. Worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Had no hobbies, no social life. Work was everything. She had no regrets. One winter afternoon, a young woman appeared at her office door. College student, journalism major from Temple University, writing a feature story about women in engineering for the student newspaper. "Miss Hadley? Do you have time for a few questions?" Vera gestured to a chair. The student sat, pulled out a notebook. "Why did you become an engineer?" Vera thought about it. "I wanted to build things, real things, machines that do actual work." "But why engineering specifically? That's very unusual for a woman, especially in your generation." "Someone gave me a chance. I took it." "Did you face discrimination?" "Yes." "How did you handle it?" "Kept working. Proved them wrong." The student scribbled notes. "Do you think more women should enter engineering?" "If they want to. It's hard work, but it's worth it." "What advice would you give to a young woman considering engineering?" "Don't listen to people who say you can't do it. Just do the work. Learn the material. Build the skills. Results speak louder than opinions." The article ran 2 weeks later in the Temple University newspaper. Called Vera a pioneering figure in a male-dominated field, an inspiration for future generations. Vera read it once, folded it, filed it away in a desk drawer. 1975. Wallace Kern retired at age 67. The board needed a new chief engineer. This time, there was no debate. Vera Hadley had been Kern's deputy for 10 years, managed the Bureau's most critical projects, brought in major contracts from General Motors, U.S. Steel, Bethlehem Shipbuilding. Her performance was unquestionable. The board appointed her chief engineer of Macklin Bureau. She was 56 years old, the first woman to hold that position in the company's 63-year history. She moved into the chief engineer's office on the third floor, larger corner office with windows on two sides, private secretary, conference table. Oversaw all engineering operations, 53 engineers across 6 departments, annual budget of $2 million. Her project supplied equipment to manufacturing plants from Massachusetts to Michigan. She traveled constantly, client sites, factory installations, technical conferences, reviewed designs, solved production problems, negotiated contracts, worked harder than ever. Her health started to decline. Arthritis in her hands from decades of drafting and writing, high blood pressure, chronic fatigue. Her doctor told her to slow down, take time off, reduce stress. She didn't listen. 1980. Vera, 61, started thinking about retirement. Bureau policy required retirement at 65. 4 more years. She thought about what she'd do after. Couldn't imagine not working. Work had defined her for 40 years. That year, a young janitor started on the second floor. A black woman named Loretta, 19 years old, high school graduate, single mother of a toddler. Vera saw her mopping the hallways late one evening, the same hallways Vera had mopped 37 years earlier. She stopped to talk. "How long have you been here?" "3 weeks, ma'am." "You like the work?" Loretta shrugged. "It's a job. Pays the rent. Ever think about doing something else?" "Like what?" "Learning a trade. Technical drafting, maybe. Or engineering." Loretta laughed. "Me? I barely passed high school math." "I barely passed 10th grade math," Vera said. "Learned it later." The Bureau has education programs, night school, tuition assistance. You interested? Loretta looked at her seriously. "You for real?" "Very real. Come see me next week. My office is on the 3rd floor. I'll help you get enrolled." Loretta came. Vera helped her sign up for technical drafting classes at Philadelphia Community College. Checked on her progress. Loretta struggled. Math was hard. Balancing classes with work and childcare was exhausting. But she persisted. 2 years later, Loretta transferred from janitorial staff to the Bureau's drafting department. Started learning computer-aided design systems, the new technology replacing hand drafting. Vera watched her career begin the same way hers had, from the bottom, with someone giving her a chance. 1983. Vera turned 65 in August. Mandatory retirement. The Bureau held a ceremony in the main conference room. 50 engineers, major clients, board members, local dignitaries. Presented her with an engraved plaque. Vera C. Hadley, Chief Engineer 1975 to 1983. In recognition of 43 years of distinguished service to Macklin Engineering Bureau. Speeches about her contributions, her pioneering role, her mentorship of younger engineers. Vera stood at the podium, uncomfortable with the attention, and gave a brief speech. "I just did my job. Designed machines, supervised projects, served clients. Nothing extraordinary. Thank you for the opportunity to do work I loved." She cleaned out her office over the course of a week. Took home her personal drafting tools, her War Department certificate, a few photographs. Left behind the corporate plaques and awards. Retirement was harder than she expected. Vera didn't know what to do with herself. Tried gardening, reading, visiting museums. Nothing satisfied her the way work had. She missed solving problems, seeing designs become real machines, knowing she'd contributed something. 6 months into retirement, the Bureau called. A major client, Bethlehem Steel, was having problems with a hydraulic press system Vera had designed 15 years earlier. Equipment wasn't performing to specifications. Deadline approaching. Could she consult? She went in the next day, examined the blueprints, reviewed the installation reports, found the problem. Incorrect valve sizing by the installation team, causing pressure fluctuations. Redesigned the valve assembly in 2 days. Bethlehem Steel was satisfied. Bureau asked her to stay on as a part-time consultant. She agreed immediately. 1990. Vera, 71, still consulting 2 days a week. Came into the bureau, worked on problems younger engineers couldn't solve, became an institutional resource, a living library of engineering knowledge. Engineers brought her difficult projects. She'd sketch solutions on scratch paper, explain the underlying physics. She liked this role better than being chief engineer. No administrative meetings, no budget negotiations, no personnel issues. Just pure engineering problem solving. One afternoon, Douglas Hartwell, the current chief engineer, who'd been one of her junior engineers in the 1970s, asked her, "Vera, do you ever think about how far you came? From where you started?" "Sometimes." "What made the difference, do you think?" Vera thought about it. "I saw something wrong. I reported it. Everything after that came from that one decision. The Whitmore case." "Yes." "You ever regret getting involved? Could have just looked the other way. Would have been easier." Vera shook her head. "No, I never regretted it. Not once." Douglas nodded. "Changed your whole life." "Changed everything," Vera agreed. 1995. Vera, 76, finally stopped consulting. Her health was declining. Severe arthritis made drafting painful. Heart problems caused fatigue and shortness of breath. Difficulty walking required a cane. She moved into a retirement community in Lansdowne, a suburb west of Philadelphia. Small one-bedroom apartment, assisted living services, communal dining room. She spent her days reading engineering journals, watching news, occasionally meeting with former colleagues who visited. Lived quietly. Her mind was still sharp, but her body was wearing out. One morning, a package arrived. Return address, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Philadelphia Field Office. Inside, a formal letter and a medal in a velvet box. The letter. "Dear Miss Hadley, in recognition of your service to the United States during World War II, specifically, your actions in 1943, which led to the apprehension and conviction of enemy agent Dalton Whitmore and the recovery of classified defense documents, the Federal Bureau of Investigation awards you the Shield of Bravery for civilian service. Your courage and patriotism contributed significantly to national security during a critical period in our nation's history." Signed, Louis J. Free, Director. The medal, a bronze shield on a blue ribbon, her name engraved on the back. Vera C. Hadley, 1943. Vera held it, tears running down her face. 52 years. They remembered. She hung the medal on her apartment wall, next to her engineering diploma and the old War Department certificate from 1943. 2000. Vera, 81, in serious decline. A stroke in January left her partially paralyzed on her left side. Could barely speak, couldn't walk without assistance. Moved to the nursing care wing of the retirement community. Loretta, now senior CAD manager at the Bureau, married with 3 grown children, visited her every week. Brought photos of current projects, told her about new design software, technological innovations. Vera listened, smiled weakly, sometimes squeezed Loretta's hand. One visit, Loretta brought her daughter Carmen, a junior at Penn State studying mechanical engineering. "Miss Hadley, this is Carmen. She's following in your footsteps." Carmen, 20 years old, bright-eyed and nervous, shook Vera's hand gently. "My mom says you were the first woman engineer at the Bureau, that you started as a janitor." Vera nodded slightly. "How did you do it? How did you become an engineer when everyone said you couldn't?" Vera struggled to speak. Loretta leaned close. Vera whispered, "Saw something wrong. Reported it. Kept working. Never quit." Carmen looked confused. Loretta explained, During the war, Miss Hadley discovered a spy stealing defense blueprints from her employer. She reported him to the FBI even though it was dangerous. Her bravery got her noticed. That's how she got the chance to study engineering. She turned that chance into a 40-year career. "You caught a spy?" Carmen's eyes widened. Vera nodded, smiled faintly. "That's incredible."
You're incredible.
Vera whispered again. "Just did what was right." November 14th, 2003. Vera Hadley died peacefully in her sleep, 85 years old. Small funeral at a Presbyterian church in Lansdowne, about 15 people. Former colleagues from the Bureau, Loretta and her family, a few distant relatives Vera barely knew, the retirement community chaplain. They buried her in West Laurel Hill Cemetery in Ballackinwood. Simple gravestone. Vera Catherine Hadley, 1918 to 2003. Engineer. Patriot. Macklin Bureau published an obituary in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Vera C. Hadley, retired chief engineer of Macklin Engineering Bureau, passed away November 14th at age 85. Miss Hadley began her career as a night janitor in 1940 and rose to become the company's first female chief engineer in 1975, serving until her retirement in 1983. During World War II, her actions led to the arrest of a German spy operating within the Bureau. She was a pioneer in her field and an inspiration to generations of engineers, particularly women entering the profession. She is survived by no immediate family. Loretta read the obituary, cut it out, had it framed, hung it in her office at the Bureau. 2010. Macklin Bureau, now called Macklin Industrial Solutions after a corporate restructuring, renovated its historic main building. During demolition work on the old second-floor offices, construction workers found a small metal box hidden in a wall cavity behind Office 214. Inside, yellowed newspapers from June 1943 reporting Whitmore's trial, a photograph of the Bureau's 1943 engineering staff, and a handwritten note. The note, in Vera Hadley's handwriting, dated March 1950. "I found 17 blueprints in this office in 1943, thrown away by a traitor. I reported him to the FBI. He was arrested, tried, and executed. That act of reporting changed my life completely. I went from janitor to engineer because I did what was right, even though I was afraid. If you find this note, know that doing the right thing, even when it's frightening, even when you're not sure, even when it costs you, can change everything. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite fear." V.C.H. The Bureau's current chief engineer, Dr. Patricia Chen, read the note, had it professionally framed along with the photograph and newspaper clippings, installed the display in the main lobby with a brass plaque, "In memory of Vera Catherine Hadley, 1918 to 2003, from night janitor to chief engineer, from anonymous tip to national recognition. She saw wrong and made it right. She proved that courage and integrity can transform a life. Her legacy endures in every woman engineer who follows her path." Employees walk past the display every day. Most don't stop to read it, but some do. Young engineers, interns, facilities staff. They read about the woman who mopped these floors, discovered treason, reported it despite fear, and built a remarkable career on that foundation of integrity. And occasionally, late at night, when the building is empty and quiet, if you stand in the hallway outside what used to be Office 214, you might imagine a young woman in a work dress, carrying a bucket, pausing at a doorway, seeing something terribly wrong, and making the decision that would define the rest of her life. Not because it was easy, not because she knew what would happen, not because anyone would ever know her name, but because it was right. And that, in the end, was enough.